TitleMatchNetwork.com.
I was going to ask you, were you guys more or less booking? Like a lot of people say you guys were in Bischoff's ear, and people say that you and Scott basically were using Bischoff as a pawn during that time period. What do you say to your critics who say that?
Every night that I remember us going over things that we were involved with, there was always 7 or 8 people in the room. And people were throwing ideas around. Now, were our ideas better and they went with them? Obviously they were. But it wasn't, it wasn't that we sat secretly and whispered. We don't work like that.
Right.
We don't work like that. I've never, ever been one of those guys that lobby. I'll pitch an idea. If you don't like it, I'm not going to come to you 50 times with it.
Right.
Just like, dude, because I know how it is when people do it to you. It's just like, okay, I heard your idea. I don't particularly like it.
Right.
But you don't want to ever say that to anybody. But it's just like if it doesn't materialize, chances are that it's a shits. Or they don't understand it, which is 90% of the time. They just don't understand it. It's too non-wrestling for them to understand. Huh. But no, I mean, we had ideas. I mean, we're really into it.
Was there a lot of political tension between you guys and Hogan and Bischoff being in the middle?
Yeah, because Hogan had Hogan's deal was, it was so ridiculous in his favor. They gave him a contract that
he had creative control.
Yeah, and then not only that, he got paid like a certain amount of dollars for every pay-per-view, whether it drew or not, and so he was always on top. And it was such like when I later booked. That alone, that contract killed me.
Right.
Because you couldn't get a hold of him. He'd come in at 6 o'clock, show went on at 7 o'clock or 8 o'clock live, and he'd just say, he's in 5 segments, and he says, bro, it doesn't work for me. And here you are scrambling to, it's, people think it's so easy. It's just like, man, those segments are timed, and, so you've got to come up, and then you've got to get guys to fill those spots. And
how much tension did that cause between you and Hulk?
None, because that was his deal.
Right.
He was smart enough to have that deal. That's not between Terry and I. That's between whoever signed the papers.
Right.
God bless him. I've always said that. God bless anybody that can get more money than me, get my spot. God bless you. Go for it. Because I'm not going to sit and let you.
Right.
So if you're better than I am, you're smarter than I am, and you're better at this game than I am, then God bless you. But
it's good philosophy.
Yeah, I haven't seen many guys that get over me. Get over on me.
Was there a lot of struggling between you, Scott, and Hogan for power and creative control at all, or was it?
We didn't have. There was no chance for us to get creative control.
Okay.
I know that we knew that we had the cool factor, like we were hip, and he just wasn't hip.
Right.
So it was like, either we could smarten him up to pop culture, and then he could smarten us up to how to get more money. It was like it became almost a synergy there that because we got several big raises during the time of this. Like we found out how much he was really making one night when we were all fucked up, and it was just like, what? You're making that? Well. Then we went into Bischoff and said, we're going to quit unless you bump our pay up.
Wow.
So
how did that work out for you guys?
We got that was that big $6.5 million contract we got or whatever.
Do you think Hogan used you guys at all, or do you guys feel that you ever used him?
I would hope so.
Right.
We'd be the only ones in the business that he didn't.
Right.
Yeah, that's just kind of the way it works.
Nature of the business.
Yeah. I know I used him big time, and when he walked down that aisle and joined us.
Right.
That was when you went to NAPT and all those other places. If you were standing next to Hogan with the same shirt he had on, you were, whether they knew you or not, they knew who the hell he was. If there's anybody with a higher Q rating than Hogan.
At the time, why was it so hard to get Sean TV time in WCW?
Waltman?
Sean Waltman.
They said he couldn't talk.
Right.
Yeah, he wasn't a good talker. He was just a good worker.
Did it become frustrating when the nWo kept expanding too, with different members? It started out with just.
It was actually kind of amusing for a while because it was like a waiting. Like, how do we get somebody over? Throw them a T-shirt.
Right.
And it worked. It worked for a long time. And then there was like the Mexican World Order. Then it was like 75 World Orders on our show.
And play Brad his icon shirt.
Yeah, so it's just. But I look at it and I say, name. I can't name an angle in wrestling that had legs like that thing did.
Yeah, it was all.
That just continued, and anytime it resurfaced, it would have worked at WWF when we came back if they wouldn't have broke us up.
I'm going to ask you about that coming up.
Yeah, it would have worked.
I guess at what point did you think to yourself, from a business standpoint, things were just spinning out of control in WCW? And when you heard that it was finally up for sale, how shocked were you?
It was up for sale, but it was up for sale to, Bischoff had Bischoff brought a group of guys in that would have paid, tenfold to what Vince paid.
Are you shocked that he didn't get it?
No, because they didn't want wrestling.
Right.
It wasn't about them, it was about them getting rid of it. It didn't matter to them. They just wanted to get rid of it. They just didn't want it. They didn't want to go to the Cable Ace Awards and say, so what's your number one rated program? Our number one rated program is wrestling. Even when we were at our demise, we were still the highest rated original programming they had.
Right.
How
did you find out that Vince finally bought WCW?
Somebody called me and said McMahon bought it. And they said, you're going to come to the last show in Panama City or whatever. They're all going to be there. And I said, nope.
Did you actually get to watch the final Nitro?
No.
No, okay. Did it? Okay. How did your contract situation work out?
I had 13 or 14 months left when he bought it. So it was like my biggest year. The contract was backloaded.
Right.
So they come to us and they say, we'll give you half your contract. I think my last year was a little over that. And we'll give you $1 million, 50 cents on the dollar. Then we'll give you $1 million guarantee on top of that. And you go back to work. I said, let me get this right. I can sit at home and make all my money, or I can give it back and go back to work and make the same amount.
Right. It makes no sense.
What? How about this? How about I just stay at home and get it all?
Yeah, exactly.
And a lot of the marks, man, I mean, God bless Dallas, but Dallas gave back half his money because he wanted to go to WWF.
Wow.
Booker did it too.
So you basically sat out, and how much time were you sitting out for again?
I think 13 months.
13 months? Wow. Okay. Do you think you would have been a part of the new WCW if Eric ever bought it?
Oh, yeah. I was counting on it.
Definitely.
I figured he'd get another 5-year run.
Were you surprised that Vince didn't keep it as a separate entity?
God, no.
You just knew that he probably didn't want anything competing with him. He always wanted...
I mean, to this day, any guy that came over from that territory, you just beat them. He just made sure that they looked as inferior to his talent as possible in the eyes of the fans.
He had to do it for business, I guess.
I look at it too, and people say, "Well, what would you do?" And I say, "You know what? It's like after the Civil War. I'm sure that the Confederates weren't, hey, nice to see you.
Right, exactly.
Come over, smack my guy around on TV. Wasn't going to happen.
Did you hear anything about the guys in the locker room from WCW going over there and how they were treated and stuff?
No.
Do you think the nWo could still work today?
Nah. It's been bad. I don't know. It would have to be later. You know what I mean?
Right. It's too soon.
It's almost like the Horseman. How many times can you do the Horseman?
Right.
But if you put together with production qualities you have today, especially with Vince's library of the guys, he could put together some incredible package and then make it almost like the Fantastic Four, and take 4 guys that were his up and coming guys, almost like the new generation. These, don't take guys that are established. Get 4 guys that that really you think can do it, and let those guys grow together as a faction. And and do that. I think that's the way you do it. This is the new. But then and I would have Rick as their mouthpiece.
How JJ was.
Yeah, and make Rick be the mouthpiece. I think that would work.
TitleMatchNetwork.com